actual part that is broken. Oh, that really threw me off. Sorry, everything moved on me. We started optimizing design systems for sameness, for consistency, instead of user purpose. Instead of thinking of our design systems as trying to achieve something for the user, we think of them as like these rigid structures, like buildings, monoliths. It actually reminds me of grandma's home. You know, when you go to grandma's house, it's like, don't touch anything. Don't get near this stuff. And I'm like, a design system is not a museum. It's not a gallery, right? You have to touch stuff and move it around. Those pieces are yours. You're the designers that have to use them. So if it's made in a way that you can't touch, it's made wrong. That's why I think it's broken. I think before I get too deep into that, because again, I like to get deep into stuff, let me introduce myself. I'm Michel Ferreira, which is really hard for most people to say in the English language, but I'm from Brazil, Rio de Janeiro to be exact. I grew up there, and I know I speak English, you know, with an American accent, which throws a lot of people off. No, I am not American. I'm also not Canadian. Michel is French. I know. I've heard all of those. I've also heard my name mispronounced as Mitchell, Michael, Mikhail. Everything you've heard of, I've done it. My first conference talk in my life, someone asked, like, hey, what's your name? I need to know your name so I can present you. And I said, Michel Ferreira. The guy goes off the stage. He goes to the corner and practices. Michel Ferreira, Michel Ferreira, Michel Ferreira. Then he goes on stage and like, and now on stage, Michael Ferrari. So again, from Brazil, moved to Canada, minus 45 degrees. You probably are asking, minus 45 degrees, is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? Fahrenheit is for Anthony, who's here from America visiting. And the answer is it doesn't matter, because minus 45 is so cold that the answer doesn't matter. I'm optimizing the answer for the user. Once I say minus 45, it's already too cold. You don't care which one it is, right? Then I moved from there to Sydney, where, oh, actually, I forgot this slide. I actually worked with the Shopify Polaris team a lot, worked with them, not on the Shopify Polaris team. I actually broke the system. Let's get into that later. For now, I moved to Sydney, Australia. I am the new designer advocate for Figma in the APAC office there. So if you haven't met me, we should talk. We should talk more about, you know, how do we connect with the teams? That's what Anthony was talking about. We advocate, we participate, we share our stories, and we learn your stories. So that's what I'm here for. I'm also very happy to share I'm becoming a citizen on Monday. 6 years in the making. Very excited to share that. It's one of those moments I'm just so excited to be here and be able to say that. That took 6 years. My son is autistic. That was a big thing for the family to be able to get that support. And again, very happy. But again, we're here to talk about design systems, and I'm a nerd. I cannot talk about design systems without getting to definitions. What is a design system? What do I even mean? What is design? What is systems? Should we get into all of that, right? I worked at Atlassian at the design systems. My definitions that I really like to define design first. So I like this definition from Jared Spool. Design is the rendering of intent. I think it's a freaking awesome way to explain design. You know, it's bringing things visually. It feels like there's an action there, right? I also like this definition from Donella Meadows that says that a system is a set of things, people, cell, molecules, or whatever interconnected in such a way that they produced a pattern of behavior over time. That's a system. So that's design, and that's a system. You see where we're going with this? How do we put these two together? What is a design system? So my take is that it would become something like an intentional set of connected things with repeated behaviors, right? But it becomes too generic. And so we landed in this, which again, support from Anthony on getting there. A design system transforms intent into infrastructure and process. That's what it is, right? Bringing intent into infrastructure and process. So it's not about repeatable, consistent pieces. It's about the process, the infrastructure, the people. How do we work together? Okay. Consistency, people. That's all people in design systems talk about. Consistency is not a goal. When you think of your system as the Lego building blocks that are just made to make everything consistent, you're gonna build the wrong thing, right? The system's goal is to help people collaborate, to have people get started, to help people have a shared understanding of the thing. Good design is about solving problems, serving the users. The consistency is just a tool in the toolbox, not the objective itself, right? Hopefully we'll get to consistency. Hopefully, you know, things are gonna look more familiar and they're gonna work better together. But in the end, that's not what we're trying to achieve. Good design is not about consistency. Or does everyone think good design is about consistency? Where do we learn that? Because it wasn't from, you know, you have to have a quote from Steve Jobs in your presentation. So here's the Steve Jobs quote. It wasn't from Steve Jobs, right? He says, design is not just what it looks and feels like. Design is how it works. I think it's a great quote. It also is very good because Apple's not 100% consistent. They're coherent. Their products work together, right? As a family, but not the same. Also wasn't from Dieter Rams. Amazing 10 rules right there. It doesn't say good design is consistent, right? So where did we learn that? How did we get to that? For me, the goal is really like, if I close everyone's eyes and I say, think about a button, think about a modal. Do you see it? Is it in your design system? Do we speak the same language? That's what I understand about it, right? It's making everyone speak the same. I'll jump a little bit through these. These are my way of being like breaking the ice a little bit. There was an icebreaker talk. I really like this kind of stuff. Apple has space gray in one of their terms. What is space gray? Have you ever stopped to think about it? Even Apple doesn't know what space gray is. Look, all of those are space gray, right? Consistency is not the goal. Just saying. You know where consistency is the goal? One of my favorite things in the world, basketball. See, Michael Jordan used to score 32 points a game, right? And someone asked him, how do you do that? And he said, well, that's just 8 points per quarter. That's just 4 baskets every 12 minutes. It's very easy. It's consistent. Is design about that? Is design about the repetitive motion, repetitive behavior, that consistency? No, we're tackling new problems, new difficult things every day. We don't go to the court and score 4 baskets every 12 minutes. This is not what we do, right? We have new challenges that come up. It's complex, it's contextual, and it's always changing. Our tasks are always changing, so it can't be consistent if a new user base comes in. So I think about it like this. There's organisms, cities, and companies, and this is from a book called Scale. I'm going to read the name because I can't say his name. I usually mess it up. Oh, Jeffrey West. Jeffrey West wrote a book called Scale about organisms, cities, and companies. And it talks about how these things evolve and grow and die. Most things grow, evolve, and die. Do you notice a pattern here? Organisms, they grow and die. Companies, they grow and die. And most of them actually grow and die in less than 100 years. But cities don't. Cities keep evolving. They keep changing. What's the difference? What is the thing that makes cities different than organisms and companies? Well, cities, they absorb chaos. They evolve naturally to resolve the problems of the density of the things that are happening in them. The users change the cities. We change cities by living in them, by modifying the patterns in them, right? Again, we touch it, we break it, right? And if it doesn't break, it will disappear. That's what happens to organisms. They have to get to a point where everything starts breaking down and then they die. Companies are the same. So I think this is a very nice approach. It's a really good book. It's very deep, very dense. But again, if you're taking something out of it, is that I don't think the name design system is the right name to begin with. It's just the wrong term, right? And the metaphor of design systems being Legos, it's horrible. I love Legos, but Legos give you instructions to build a specific thing, right? Here's the Millennium Falcon. Here's 1,000 pieces to build, 11,000 pieces, 11,000 pieces to build them. Go, right? We don't do that. We don't have instruction manuals. There's no way to go like, hey, you need to build a new navigation for the Jira team, and here's the instruction manuals, and go. Just grab the stuff out of the components, don't detach anything, and put them on there, and just build it. Right? That's not going to work. This is not how we live. Our product, it doesn't work that way. So if it's not a design system, what should I call it? What is the real name of a design system? I think it should be a design language. And I think design system teams should be the people that write dictionaries. We canonize what is already out there. We make the language real. The language is already shared. You already talk it. You already speak it on your day-to-day, right? Again, if you close your eyes and you say modal, you probably see the modal your team uses. So that language exists. The job of the design system team is putting that down in the way you use it, giving directions about how to use it and how not to use it, like language, right? To make it further, here's a quote from Kenneth Pike. I'm going to read it because it's a quote. Language is not merely a set of unrelated sounds, clauses, rules, and meanings. It is a total coherent system of these integrating with each other and with behavior, context, and a universe of discourse and the observer's perspective. It even talks about the user, the observer's perspective. It depends on who is reading it. It depends on the context. It depends on how you use it, which is why if we have language as the way we speak about it, if it's a design language, we can have dialects. It becomes easier to understand that maybe there's a primitive foundational system, right? That is the core language. And maybe the way I speak English is more an international way of speaking English because I lived in America and in Canada and in the Netherlands. And my accent doesn't really fit any of these places, and it doesn't fit Brazil, right? But I speak Portuguese from Brazil. I have to put that every time I select a checkbox for that, right? So having dialects is important. Understanding that your language has dialects is important. I also put this one because I think it's really interesting. Have you ever seen the movie Arrival? Basically, this explains the movie. Language defines the way that we reflect and express our thoughts. So if we talk about things a certain way, if we only say they are Lego blocks, if we only say consistency, if we think about it, it is real. That's the problem, right? So the way we talk about things, if we keep calling them design systems and thinking about them as Lego bricks, we're going to get stuck. So back in the day, I used to work for Shopify, like I said, in Canada, minus 45 degrees, all of that. What happened was I joined a team that was the warehousing team. And the warehousing team was told, we all use Shopify Polaris. And Shopify Polaris, for most people that talk about design systems, is one of the gold standards of design systems. And we were told, 100% adoption, you guys need to use it. It's a new product, just use Polaris. Cool. We started with Polaris. We designed everything, back in the day, all the screens, all the prototypes, put the prototype in people's hands and went to a warehouse. We got to the warehouse. It's a tiny Android device. The screen is probably almost as big as the clicker. And it has a big thing attached to it to scan the product on the warehouse. You're in the dark. You barely read English because the people there are barely English speakers at that point. You're wearing big, thick gloves, and you have to click the scanner, add a thing with this 48 pixel button that says, please click here to scan in your product or something like that. And the person's like, what? And then they're trying to do the thing. No one could use the product. It was ridiculous. It was the worst experience I've ever had. It felt like, trying to teach someone to drink water without saying the words like, put it in your mouth and drink it. It's like, hold this, click the thing. It just doesn't work. All they needed was this. They needed something that literally had a button that says scan, scan, scan. That's what they needed. But Shopify Polaris wasn't built for that. It was built for an admin sitting on the computer going, add a product, ship it here, move it there. That's what it is, right? So the user is a different user with a different context, with a different language, different need. It doesn't express the same way. So we had to create a model. The model was defining the parts of the journey and saying a merchant's job is expressed through a journey. How they do that, and this may sound, again, very simple, right? But this was not something we used to communicate internally. So we needed a way to think about what we were doing. Then how they do the job is the context. And then the pressures they face are the factors. Why do we need that? Well, we needed that because the decisions made by the design systems team were not translated to the way we use the product. I'll jump a couple of slides because I just noticed my slides are out of order. Doop, doop. There you go. This one. So we built this system which used those factors and those contexts and all of that. And you would pick here. You would go like, what are we looking at? Well, I'm looking at the display size is small. The noise level is high. And there's time pressure. If I click those things, it would generate a set of rules of how we want the product to interact. And those rules would show you some of the components that were made with those rules in mind. This is the whole expressive design systems that you probably heard about. There's a book on a book apart from Yesenia, who also worked on this. But the idea was the factors need to be taken in consideration. You can't just design a system without thinking about the factors of how you actually will use that system. Okay, so I'm going back. Why? Because decisions have a shelf life. Someone made a decision a long time ago that this is how a modal works. They decided that the two buttons on the right cannot stick together if they're both primary. You have a primary and a secondary. Who decided that? John, and he's not in the company anymore. Okay, cool. Are we going to stick to it? Yeah, because it's in the design system. It's written. Come on. Consistency, guys. That's the problem. How many times have I heard that in my life? 100 at least. It's always a challenge. Decisions may not feel clear, especially if you're new on the team. You just joined. You never met John. And you're now still using the primary and the secondary, the way that he designed it 10 years ago when he designed this the first time. And we're sticking to it. Challenge those, have conversations about those, bring in those factors and those contexts and say like, hey, did you ever consider that in this new use case, we don't need it that way? And then decisions without clear rationale can feel limiting. And that was a big thing for us because we were like, so we're saying that the decisions are already in the system, but the rationale isn't. So what if instead of just scaling the decisions, we could scale the rationale, right? And so that's what we wanted to do. When we built this expressive system, we were thinking about, can we bring the rationale of the system to all of you? So now you're a part of the system. You're building it. You're evolving it, right? And you clicked on it and you said task repetition, and now it gives you this. It says, look, for retail, efficiency is everything for in-store staff. Because if you are in-store and you're selling coffee and you're using Shopify's POS, right? Your job is coffee, send, pay, coffee, send, pay. That's the repetition you're doing. But if you're in your house managing the admin and thinking about the logo on the website, and does it have the shop? Is the checkout there? Like, do I have shipping? All those other things make sense in the Shopify admin. They don't at the retail side. Cool. And warehousing, which was my team. Warehousing also has their own set of rules. See, the information for someone that is packing a box. Did you ever stop to think why Amazon sends you this big box for something that is quite small? I know the answer. It also is efficiency, but it's because the person went and they picked all the stuff and they put it in a little basket. And then they did that for the next order and the next order and the next order. And they take all of those to a table. And that's the packing table. Now, at the packing table, they have boxes that are ready for them. And they look at this tiny thing and they're like, first box, grab the box, put it inside, close, grab the thing, put it on, ship. And that's what they do. They already grab the stuff. The box is already ready for them. They didn't go put this in that. They never do that comparison. They never go like, let's make a box for this. The box is there, the thing comes in. So they're focused on accuracy and time. They're focusing on being fast, right? So you want that device to not take their time. The device is scan, yes, green, go. That's it. Now I'm packing. I don't have to look at the device anymore. I'm going to look at it when I do the next order. Okay? And this is really to show that's the internal shipping label in Shopify. This was a mobile version of the screen. This did not make sense for those users, right? And then you move that into the retail world, and it's a completely different system. It doesn't look like it's speaking the same language. It is what I call a dialect, right? However, it's not a term, like the term itself, calling it a dialect is something that I've started doing that at Shopify. But if you think about it, you have dialects in your life. You plug your iPhone, you have an iPhone in your hand. You plug your iPhone to your car, you have CarPlay. CarPlay doesn't look like your phone. You speak that, it works completely fine. It has a familiar feel, but it's not the same device. It's not the same. It's actually speaking to an Android screen in your car. Most of the times, the screen in your car is an Android screen opening an app, and it has to work with that. It's familiar. It's not consistent. It feels right. It doesn't have to be consistent. You can say it to yourself. It doesn't have to be consistent. Okay, so that's what it looks like. The warehousing one, I couldn't find a good picture, I'm sorry. So that's the retail one. If you go to Shopify Polaris and you look for retail for Shopify or retail for Polaris, you will find this. It's a completely different device. It's focused on efficiency. It's in dark mode always. That's not the case. Shopify doesn't even have dark mode. It's white with a lot of purple. This is the way it looks here. Why did I want to share this? What's the future that I see? And I hope it's not this, because, oh my God, we have too much of that happening already. The future that I see is us creating more flexible systems, thinking in a way that we think about, like, if you think of a building, the way you build a building, it looks very rigid from the outside. And looking from the outside, the Atlassian design system, the Shopify design system, these are like core systems that, look amazing. Every team inside is panicking and thinking they're not building the right thing and thinking that we still have to make it better. We're at this point that we just have to evolve this. All of them face that problem, all of them, right? The thing that helps them is when they find frameworks and systems to allow for flexibility. We forced it in. At Atlassian, I wrote a rule set that said, if you are making a new component, you're going to put in your component, is this variable, is this rigid, or is this flexible? And you're going to define it. If it's variable, what are the variables that I can have? Oh, a card. Well, a card can have 3 sizes, and these are the sizes, and one has image and one doesn't. I defined it. It's variable, meaning I can only use those versions. It's rigid, means don't touch. It's grandma's house. Don't touch at all. And the flexible one is maybe a card is whatever card you need. It's love and peace, man. It's totally fine. Just touch my card. So, go with it. But that's the future, right? The future is like knowing when to have which and not saying all of them are that rigid structure. And again, rigid structures, buildings sway, okay? They have to sway. If not, they will break with the wind, right? So your system has to bend. If not, it will break. And I want us all to open the doors for the multiverse and have the variants come in. We have to allow the variants to come into our systems. Thank you. One more thing, because that's a very Apple thing to do, and I'm not with Apple, but again, I like one more thing. If you need the article for that, that's the article that talks about your design systems not breaking. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn and talk more later, you can just jump there and get the QR code. Cool.
Any questions? I know you repeated multiple times, we don't need consistency. But what I mean, I know you didn't say exactly in those words, but indirectly. But what I'm thinking, maybe as a researcher wearing a research hat, or maybe I'm just thinking aloud a little bit.
Yeah, please.
That people are used to certain mental models.
Yeah.
But people are used to familiar things.
Yes.
Familiar systems. And if you're not going to be consistent, we are possibly confusing them.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
All right. So what I didn't do here is go all the way back to the past and talk about the first experience of the article, which is booking.com. So when I worked on booking.com, we didn't have a design system. It was complete chaos. We would literally take a screenshot, go on Photoshop, and move something around, and then copy a color with a picker, and then do it, and code it, and ship it, and it's an experiment, and now it's live. And if it works, it works. And if the conversion goes up, success. You shipped a new part of the code. No design systems whatsoever. Third biggest e-commerce in the world. It was making money. It was serving the customer. It was actually doing user research. People loved booking.com, right? So I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying be booking.com, but I'm saying it does work, right? It's a choice. How much consistency you want and how much familiarity you want. The other challenge of that is your system may be familiar with your system, within your system, in the micro level, but does it work and is it familiar with the things around it, right? That was a thing we were facing at the Jira navigation project. When Jira's navigation was at the top, it was one of the only products that had navigation at the top at the time. And most products that have a complex system have a navigation on the side. And so what I called companions at the time, I said, well, I use Gmail, I use Slack, and then I go to Jira. That's the context switching I'm doing all the time. I get something on Gmail, I check it on Slack, I go to Jira. Jira's on the top. That familiarity was broken because now I'm going side, top. It always messed me up. And we found that with user research too. Our users were getting confused by the fact that most of the systems are on the left and it allowed for you to customize. You can add tags, you can add channels, but in Jira you couldn't. Everything was on the top and everything was in a dropdown. So that confusion is what I was targeting. So there's a little bit of that where it's not, don't try to not be consistent. That's not the point. The point is that's not the goal. The goal is not consistency. The goal is collaboration, efficiency, working together. Questions?
Hi. First of all, really great talk. I'm usually quite intimidated by design systems. So I was like, do I enter or not? But it actually broke all that intimidation. And I wanted to ask, what's one thing that I can do to be better at design language while still being able to maintain the familiarity?
That's an interesting question. I think, and I'm going to try to understand if it's like starting out, because you said like you don't have a lot of experience with design systems, right? So I think a lot of people fear that they have to start very high and they have to commit a lot and they have to I have to have at least 3 things or 4. My thing is, if something is going to be reused more than 3 times in your system, then it probably needs to be in a system. Doesn't matter what it is, a button, a font size, right? Whatever it is, think about it that way, and that takes away the barrier, and you don't have to worry about like what is canon, what isn't. Well, it's canon if I use it 3 times. If I'm going to use it only once, then it's not. The case that I like is the Jira table is a table that exists in Jira for you to put your issues. It only exists in Jira, so it's not part of the design system of Atlassian. But Confluence has a table. It's a completely different table because it's meant for you to write stuff, and it's a lot more editing on it, right? This one is for issues, this one is for content, and they're different, and that's okay. They're both tables, and they're both not in the system. So hopefully that helps, like knowing that it's okay to like start small, keep adding, and only add when you need.
Hi, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's very valuable. My question is like consistency. You said not to do it. So if you are not consistent, you may be challenging the stakeholders and the competition.
Okay.
And how to catch up with that, because stakeholders are not prepared with non-consistency.
You have to, and stakeholders are great because stakeholders do not care about consistency. Your business team does not care about consistency. They care about ROI. They care about efficiency. They care about delivering and shipping. And so if the benefit of your system is increasing the speed of your team and having them have a better starting place where they collaborate faster and get to a solution better at the end, right? That's good. I didn't say don't have a system that is consistent. I said that's not the goal, right? The goal for me, and the only way we get funded as a design system team is if we think about how are we going to actually help the user and help the business, right? You help the user by solving their problems. You help the business by increasing the ROI, the impact of that team. It's not consistency. That's not what none of those people, like the user or the stakeholders, they're both not asking for consistency. They're asking for better products and more impact.
And what about the patience with it? Like consistency, you are challenging consistency in a way for long-term benefit. Yes. And what about the patience to reaching that benefit when you are managing a team, for example?
Most teams are going to understand that your impact is what gets measured. Consistency, how do you measure consistency? Are you going to go through all the screens and go like, here's the screen and it's 80% consistent because we used the wrong button? No one does that. We talk about consistency like a final, like end level boss, but we do not measure it. We measure adoption of components. We measure, are the user satisfaction correct, right? We believe that once something is consistent, it's just perfect and it's amazing and users are going to love it. But that's not true. And again, I use the Apple Space Gray example, which is kind of a joke. But if you look at Google's apps on your phone, the Google Calendar and the Gmail and any other app, they have variations because they need to, because they have different user bases with different needs. Even the navigation on the top changes, and it's surprising sometimes because I was doing the Jira navigation, I was like, wait, does this change here? Why? But again, because the user need is different, right? So knowing when it's for the user, knowing that it's the benefit of the user, and that's when you choose. I also have a term with my team, it's our earned deviation. You earn it. You don't just deviate because you want to, right? You show us that you need that deviation. You say like, look, I want to add this thing. Why? Well, because the user here came for the calendar and what they think about is time zones. That makes sense. I need to. So that's the focus, right? It's like, why do you need it? Give me a reason for the thing, right? Don't just say, I'm going to deviate because I want to. All the buttons are blue. I'm going to make it red tomorrow because Michel said so. That's not it. It's if there's a need, go for it. And don't worry about the consistency too much. Oh, gosh. There's like four of them at the same time.
One more question.
Go. Sorry.
Hi, thank you. I'm wondering which other characteristics or adjectives you will add to the list with consistency in terms of the design system. What other aspects of a design system can become a roadblock if you stick too much to them?
That's a very interesting question. That's usually the biggest one. Yeah, that's usually the biggest one because, again, rigidity in system thinking is very complicated and it does break systems down, right? Because it stops you from, there's a lot of like, don't detach my stuff, like that idea in design systems. And that's where this comes from. It's like, it's being okay with people learning things and actually solving the user problem, right? Which is the end goal. So for me, it's anything that would stop you from doing that.
Do you think people confuse consistency with being robust?
I think they merge the concept of consistency with being good and with being well designed, right? But I think familiarity is what they mean, right? Again, I can go to Google Calendar and go to Gmail and go to Google Docs and feel like this is a family and they work together, but they don't look at all like the same. And they have specific use cases. And that's what I mean. Sorry, there was 4 more hands up. So there in the back.
We've run out of time.
Oh, we ran out of time. Sorry, people.
But are you around for chat?
I am around for chats. So
Yep.
I'm here all day. Thank you. Thank you.